There is a moment we recently documented while speaking with a founder. It happened before the business had really taken shape. There's a moment many founders eventually reach, and it usually begins with a simple statement. I think I need help with marketing. More marketing, better marketing, which is usually where founders start looking. Because when a business feels stuck, marketing seems like the logical place to go. But sometimes, if you sit with the conversation long enough, you realize something else is happening. And the issue isn't marketing at all. Recently, I spoke with a founder named Pamela. She had started a small business selling pound cakes. And the product was already working. People loved the cakes. The feedback was immediate. One person said that the cakes tasted like love. Another person took a bite, paused, and said she wasn't sharing it with anyone. So the product wasn't the problem. But Pamela reached out because she thought the next step was marketing. How should she promote it? How should she reach more people? How do you grow something like this? Which is a very important question for founders to ask. But the longer we talked, something interesting began to appear. At first, I assumed the conversation really was about marketing. But the more we talked, the clearer it became that marketing wasn't the issue. And when that realization surfaced, the entire business suddenly looked different. The real question was structural. There was actually several possible paths for the business. One path looked like a traditional bakery, volume, consistent production, trying to sell as many cakes as possible. Another path looked very different. Small batches, intentional distribution, a pace that could realistically fit her life. And when we looked at the numbers, something surprising appeared. Her goal for years was to add about $5,000 to $10,000 of income. At first, that sounded like a lot of production. But when we actually looked at the math, it didn't require dozens of sales. It required roughly 10 cakes per month. 10. That single realization changed the entire posture of the business. The pressure changed. The pace changed. And suddenly the marketing question became much simpler because the structure had finally been named. This movement happens far more often than people realize. Many founders believe that their next step is marketing, but the deeper tension usually appears somewhere else. In questions like, what kind of business am I actually building? Who is this really for? How should this actually be priced? What pace of growth fits my life? And until those decisions become clear, marketing can feel confusing because you're trying to promote something that hasn't fully taken shape yet. Once the structure becomes clear, marketing tends to become much simpler. Not because tactics improved, because direction did. What's interesting about these moments is that they rarely happen publicly. They happen quietly, often in conversation, sometimes in reflection, sometimes when a founder finally asks a different question. Not, how do I promote this? But what actually am I building? That shift changes everything. We recently documented Pamela's discussion and decision moment in a new editorial series inside of inCity magazine called Before It Worked. It focuses on the stage founder's experience before the business becomes visible. The moment when clarity quietly begins replacing guesswork. Because many of the most important decisions in a business happen long before anyone else notices the business at all. Moments like this happen long before the public ever sees the business. That's why we've started documenting them in a series we call Before It Worked.